All right. I hereby call to order and open the continued public hearing of the Planning Board on Tuesday, December 1st at 6 p.m. to consider the request by 30 Fort Hill Road, 1776 Brewing Company, LLC, to amend an existing special permit. As this is a continuation, if anyone wants to speak to something not on the Planning Board agenda, they can do so at our next regularly scheduled meeting. In our last meeting, the Planning Board requested that the applicant provide us with a site map to scale, and we scheduled and performed a site visit to examine the lighting around the premises. We also had some homework to examine the criteria in section 10.14 of the Easthampton zoning ordinance regarding parking, paving, etc. At the last meeting, we also began the process of considering some conditions. This evening, we'll ask the applicant to produce the requested site map and discuss the memorandum that they delivered to us today. We'll discuss the site visit and section 10.14. As there's some new information here, we'll give the public a chance to speak on the specific issues we're discussing after the applicant presents and we ask our questions and discuss the site visit. As always, I ask for brevity in any such comments, and I will continue to hold to an 8-minute time limit. The board will then discuss in more depth what conditions we deem appropriate. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. So that means the first order of business we have is to approve the minutes from November 17th, our last meeting. Did you have a chance to look at that?
Yes, I did.
Are there any comments or changes that you want to make? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the 17th November.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Abstain? Okay. All right. Now I wonder if the applicant would come forward and tell us a little about the memorandum, and do you have the site map to scale? Thank you. You guys want to take a look?
Oh, boy. You guys would like to see this? You get over here, I'll get over there.
That's all right.
You got enough room there? Okay, so 1 inch equals 30 feet.
That's unusual.
Okay, this is the big issue for me, is there 5 feet there? We're gonna have to clarify that.
Right.
Okay.
Now, what's he,
Alright.
he's moving one over here, down to here, is that what he's doing?
I think he had
Yeah.
parking. Yeah. I think you had parking on this side originally in the original map, did you not? Or
Yes.
you did?
Yeah, he just moved it this way. He moved it down towards the brewery, right?
Yeah, we just moved it
Yeah.
closer. to-
Closer. Okay.
I guess because it was a formatting error. Because my architect's kind of old school.
Okay.
He likes to do things by hand. Unfortunately, he hasn't adapted to the modern day and age.
There are only 24 spaces.
24 there.
Let's verify that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't want to write on it, but remember 9.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That makes it
Same
easy.
thing.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
24.
24. Well, there's an error.
We'll have to
I mean, unless there's kind of a little sliver there, but that certainly doesn't look like it's going to be a space.
No.
Good catch.
Yeah.
Make sure you guys speak up, please, too.
Yep.
So
Make sure you
Rebecca
speak
Tebow
up.
from Doherty Wallace, Pillsbury and Murphy, here on behalf of Fort Hill Brewery with Eric Berzins.
I got a question that I want.
So for the 24 spaces, which you just counted and we see is incorrect, I believe our architect also drew the spots bigger than is required, so I think we can get in there an additional spot to come to the 60. Because our understanding is that the spots need to be 9 by 20 feet, except for the requirement for the handicap spots. Do you want to keep reviewing?
I think we should move forward to your memorandum unless anyone has any questions about this map specifically. No? Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So, just to review, we're here asking for amendments because the business has evolved and grown, and we realize that the neighbors, as our physical neighbors, also have a say in this process, and we are willing to make some concessions that we feel might not necessarily be required of other breweries, so we appreciate the opportunity to present our issues as well. In terms of the first 3 points on the memo, I basically just summarized what happened at the last meeting and the language that was used in the last meeting. The actual conditions, we requested some additional clarifying language in the incidental brewery activities, just to make clear that the pouring permit itself is not prohibited by the fact that we're allowed to do is not prohibited, and we're allowed to do the retail activity. With the operation of the tasting room, I set forth the hours that you had set forth last time, and we went over a crowd control plan, but given that the business is continually evolving, I didn't think it was wise to put in there the exact every step of that crowd control plan, but just to say that we have a crowd control plan,
And
we
in
will
regards to the
implement
crowd
it.
control plan, we did a survey last Saturday. We had a fairly successful weekend, given that it was Thanksgiving. We had a lot of people coming back to Easthampton to visit their friends and family. We took a survey of the room. There were approximately 60 people, which was fairly full. And then we did a count of all the cars, and there were approximately 35 cars. So that sort of gives you an idea of, in a maximum capacity, the load of people that we're dealing with.
With point 3, the outdoor music, we're requesting that it be slightly more general in terms of utilizing a portable sound barrier, not necessarily requiring plexiglass, just in case that isn't effective. We would want to be able to change that out without having to come back and change the entire permit. With the parking and access, we have the plan. We spoke with Jessica about the number of spots and the paving requirement, because I think no one here wants to see the entire lot paved. So the idea was that the minimum amount be paved based on the uses. And so if you look at the requirement for the manufacturing, based on the manufacturing use, which is based on the size, we come out to 19 spots based on a 10,000 square foot building. And then we felt that we needed to also account for the tasting room and that use. And so I went through a comparative analysis, because obviously tasting room is not a use in your zoning ordinances. So what is the requirement for a restaurant or bar? At the max, which restaurant or bar calculates seating requirement, parking requirement based on the seating capacity of the restaurant or bar. And so it wasn't a great comparison, because we have an occupancy capacity of 87. So if we calculated the requirement of 87 seats, which isn't really reasonable, that would require 22 spots plus a number for employees, because the restaurant or bar requires 1 spot for 4 seats. If we look at what's required for other retail uses, that requires 3 spots, and that would be based on the size of the tasting room at 600 square feet. And that's strictly a size requirement in the table 10.3 of the zoning ordinance. If we look at membership club, that requires 12 spots based on the size as well. We are proposing paving 25 spots, which would be the 19 plus 6 additional the 19 required of a manufacturing plus 6 additional for the tasting room. And we believe that's a fair number, because A, you have the gravel spots to accommodate beyond that, and we feel we are different enough from those other uses. We don't think we're as low as other retail uses, which would only require 3 spots, but a membership club serves multiple kinds of beer. It generally has longer operating hours and sometimes serves food, and we feel those differences are enough to make it so that we don't we shouldn't have to have the 12 spots that would be required of a membership club. It also meets the goal of minimizing environmental, not necessarily damage, but impacts based on having a greater impervious surface.
And if I could speak on that note. All right, so in the wintertime, when the snow is melting, there's about two days of the year when there is a massive amount of water just coming down Fort Hill Road. This comes from our neighbor's property, and we, when we originally designed the site plan, of course, we integrated this, but we have taken precautions amongst ourselves to put in a trench along Fort Hill Road in order to accommodate a massive amount of water. But for about 2 days of the year, there is just a ginormous flow of water going down Fort Hill Road, and it will go past Fort Hill, the property, and it will create massive amounts of erosion. So even though the surveyor did her job, and we have a very sandy soil, so our soil is able to accommodate a huge amount of drainage. We already have 2 areas where the water is flowed over the backside, but you know, nature does its thing, and it's going to be pretty impressive the amount of water that goes down Fort Hill Road. Not because of our property, but because of the neighbors. Not those neighbors, the ones that are angry. Not those people. I'm sorry.
Please continue.
So typically, my understanding is your job is to ensure minimum amount of parking to accommodate. Here, Fort Hill Brewery has adequate space for more than the minimum, and that by allowing parking to be increased on its property, it will ensure that people aren't parking on the road and creating other problems. So we proposed 25 spots. We also heard that there may be a concern about seeing the driveway area access in and out of the lot, and so we proposed putting reflectors there to minimize the need to put in more lights, which...
Can you show us where these 25 spots would be?
So the paved spots?
Yeah, and show it, kind of just indicate where it would be paved.
So I think Eric can generally indicate where they'll be paved, but I had spoken with Jessica about this.
Okay.
So the majority would be in this bulk,
Okay.
and then,
Which is 14 spots there, and you're
14
saying 25, so 9 more would be added?
let's say, the front of the building, so it's easier to plow. We wouldn't degrade our property by having excess surface area exposed to the plow. So, let's say
And the driveway would be paved as well?
yes. And mostly when we had experienced a fairly large amount of people this weekend, we had people parking up until here. They weren't really going back.
And the handicap spots would be included in the paving as well?
Absolutely.
And the reflectors, since you're standing here,
Those are right here.
okay.
No lights, just reflectors.
Well, I think they're going to get to that, right?
No lights, just reflectors.
For the driveway, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Please continue.
So the reason we also wanted to keep we didn't want to specify exactly every spot that would be paved, but we're just requesting a requirement that 25 spots be paved in accordance with the special permit zoning ordinance requirements, is because we want to be able to look at the drainage of the site and figure out which spots will be, how we can minimize the amount of paving while maximizing the environmental benefits and minimize environmental degradation. As far as lighting, which was discussed but not out of compliance with the open meeting law at the site visit, we would like to propose that we provide adequate lighting for the parking lot, which I think would be best by just putting it on the building like it was in I'll call it the front of the building, the part of the building that faces the field.
This part, sorry.
Yeah, so this was where the lights
Yeah.
you had indicated were good, and they
Right.
seem to go out pretty far. So if we put lights on the building to light these areas faced down too, so that they're not projecting outwards too much.
And we can put them higher up on the building, because that's how the building is pretty high.
Can you guys speak up so that everybody can hear, please? Thank
We
you.
could put the lights up a little higher on the building, so that they project a little bit more outwards and do not disturb them.
That'll include this side of the building here where the handicap spots are. They'll be lighted.
We can certainly include that.
Should be.
We do have lighting underneath the porch, so it was fairly well.
No, but you're gonna have the outer parking areas. I think the lighting should be reflected outward more.
Fair enough.
Could you put one up on the second level there? That might
Yeah, we
project
could
out
put
a
it right
little.
at the crux, so that it.
Yeah, that,
Safety is a big concern of ours, for obvious reasons. It's what we do here. And I'm not going to name names, but one of the planning board members did trip on the way out of the lot as they were coming this way. And I think lighting in this area, especially coming in and out, is really important. And this is just my opinion, but I think that these lights they're putting here are needed, and it's a good suggestion. I think that'll solve this problem. But I think some light here is kind of essential. It's just
Right, the front
it's
entrance.
just too dark over on this side, and these lights will shed that way and that way and that way and that way, and that's great. It's a big improvement, but this is just dark.
And I would add that probably this corner is gonna be pretty dark too,
yes.
based on my recollection of.
Now, what's being
With
suggested?
all due respect, though, we do have some hops growing here, and we are gonna plan on growing more. And on 24 hours of light do not do hops justice. They really do need to sleep a little bit. So if we do flood our property with lights,
I tend
You know,
to
we
think
can-
that these lights here will cover this well, which is, we have precedence with auxiliary parking and not having everything paved. This has been done before. But this section that you're considering paving, this one spot here, do you have hops near here?
no, but we've got the giant sycamore tree
Yeah.
that was required not to get cut down.
You could attach a light to that, I don't know, but this area here, or at least
All right, how-
maybe one light in this direction off the building.
How about over here?
I think it's more about wiring.
Not only though, we got a giant sycamore tree that's.
Yeah.
gonna-
But you also have.
I mean, that would work for me too. Basically, just something that kind of covers this area.
Yeah, isn't there an electrical box at the entrance there?
I don't believe, everything's underground, it's fairly,
I think there was a
Okay.
box there. Well,
So I know one of the guides in 10.14 was that this be 5 feet away, which at the site visit it looked close. I didn't measure it precisely.
Looked okay, but
It looked okay, so I would just recommend that when you if
when we do
we
paving,
complete
we'll
this,
make
yeah,
sure
make
that
sure
it's a
that
full
that's.
5 feet.
All right. Any other questions about lighting or parking?
All right, this back here was okay, because that was pretty well lit when we were up there. It was like a shadow coming off here, we could see it. But from here to here was absolutely black.
Right.
Back in here. I mean, it was just black, black, black.
So that's why they're going to add lighting.
Yeah,
up
this,
here.
he's gonna have to put an awful lot of lighting, like right in here. He's gonna have parking over to the side. He can do that.
I mean, I think one thing we could say is, you know, that there has to be lighting that's sufficient to light all of the parking spaces, including the auxiliary spaces. And
Right.
like exactly how that is accomplished may not be something we need to
Yeah.
say, as long as we know
intent,
that
yeah.
the intent is that every place where someone is parking their car is going to be safely lit. You know.
Sounds reasonable.
Well, the only way around that is if he wants to protect his growth area, he could just eliminate the parking spots on that back side. I mean, he'll still have all this and all this and all this over here and
Yeah,
all
we're-
that.
Well, that brings up a question. I mean, I think it's possible in your design that these lights on the side could do that trick, but it brings up the question of, with the auxiliary parking, and I personally think that paving 25 spots up front is a good plan between public safety, providing for the handicap, and also preserving runoff capability, et cetera. But with these additional, the auxiliary parking, I'll refer to the non-paved, non-2-minute service, how will you delimit those spaces? How are they going to be marked, or will they be marked in any way?
Well, we've got a fairly firm gravel right there right now. We've done research online, and they do provide painting material that you can spray down once or twice a season that withstands weather, both sun, wet, water.
So you're gonna mark the surface of the ground with it?
Correct.
Can I just remind the board that in the past applications, you've not required delineation for the auxiliary parking. So if this is something you tend to do, just understand that you may be setting a precedent for future applications.
Appreciate it, thank you. Any further questions about this?
Is there any way that, if you're concerned about the lighting affecting your crop growing, is there any way that they could be on a separate circuit for that area so that they could be shut off after hours or something like that?
We've hired some resourceful people in this town. I'm sure we can figure it out.
Okay. So that's something new. I'm going to want to give the public a chance to comment on that, but you've got more of your presentation to get through, so we kind of interrupted. Please continue.
That's okay. Just one other thing is, I had spoken with Jessica about stormwater management plan concerns, and because I believe we'll have to have a stormwater management plan approved based on the size.
I may be shooting myself in the foot here, but our stormwater management plan was designed for paving up front. So our current stormwater plan does accommodate for paving the driveway. And I don't recall the exact square footage, but a certain amount of square footage up front.
Can I just ask, I know the condition from the last, the 2011 was that a stormwater plan needed to be approved by the health department and the city engineer. Do they have copies on file? Because I don't have one in the planning department.
We do have an extensive report.
Okay.
I thought I submitted what I had to submit, but I will certainly make sure.
If you could just give me a copy of what you already have so that I have it in the file, that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, well, that crosses one question I had off of my list, too. All right, so what you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that the plan that you're going to give to Jessica, possibly again, is going to apply as well to the new plan here, given that we get through it, to pave 25 spots. Is that correct?
Correct.
You won't have to redo it because it's still applicable. We'll have to see that. All right, anything else?
That's all I have. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I felt this was pretty well put together and gives us something to work with. I'd like to offer on the specific issues of parking and lighting, because we talked about our site visit a little bit here, and they produced some new information. If there's anyone in the public that wants to talk about the specific issues of parking and lighting and the proposed paving of 25 spaces, is there anyone here that wants to discuss that?
Does that mean we don't get to ask other questions?
We're gonna give people an opportunity today to speak on the issues that are being brought before us. So as issues come up and topics come up that are new,
But if it came up last time at the end and wasn't answered, we don't, and nor.
I'm curious, what are you referring to?
You have already referred to the fact that you're highly concerned with safety, and at the end of last meeting, I brought up the thing about the road, and the mayor said to talk to them for that. So
You're
I
talking
have-
about the speed bumps, is that?
No, I'm talking about the total safety on the road.
Total safety.
The speed bumps was one, so if you guys are so concerned
We're
about safety, then
we're
why-
gonna talk and continue to talk, especially as we get into our discussions about what we're doing for safety in the road, for paving, et cetera. But our purview is really outside of what happened. I mean, we're dealing with this property.
Okay, can we ask questions about what they just presented?
Yes, please, that's what I'm asking you to come up with, which
Well,
was,
that wasn't safety.
which about parking and lighting. Please state your name and address.
I'm sorry if this is going to screw up your procedure, but they did speak to other things than parking and safety, and one of the things was the membership club. Could they explain, or could you explain what is meant by the club membership and how that would affect occupancy or the clientele of, did you not say that, Eric?
So for the, can I?
Please.
Yeah.
So for the,
Do you want to stand?
sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't get my name, Janie Thurber, 11 Fort Hill
sorry.
Road.
Thank
The Thurber
You
again.
guys are gonna have to share the podium.
So for the paving requirement, the minimum, we're proposing that only a minimum amount be paved, and that amount be based on the uses of the
Yes.
property. And so there is a requirement for based on the size of the building and its use as a manufacturing facility, for 19 spots to be paved. However, we do have the tasting room. There is no use in the zoning ordinances. There's a table 10.3 which carves out, specifies use and then how you calculate minimum number of
Right.
spots. And so there is no use of tasting room, but we felt that we needed to account for that parking somehow. And so I compared it to other like uses. And so there's restaurant bar, which we think is too high an amount, a membership club, which would have, based on the
Okay,
size, would have
so-
required 12 spots.
I'd like to add to that too, just a little bit, and thank you.
Thank you.
Is that I'm confident Jessica and other members of the board, and by the way, your question was relevant. That was part of her parking presentation, totally relevant. Thank you. So,
Good.
So we've all gone through looking for uses because we don't have a tasting room use. So we're looking, and she used the word membership club. She also used the word bar, which could be contentious. But we're looking in our thing for possible uses that are somewhere near what the occupancy of the space is. Occupancy. That's what
Okay,
we're going for.
I thought that it related to what I'd understood to be something, Eric, that you might have advertised online as a membership, something. And I don't know, okay. Fine. Then the safety thing, I still contend, road issues should be concerned before a lot of this stuff is.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Come on up.
I want to address broader issues at some point.
I apologize for interrupting. I have to have you do your name and add the usual rigmarole.
I'm not sure whether I want to speak now, but I'm going to be disqualified for speaking later on broader issues.
We're going to have an opportunity to talk about what we're talking about as we go forward. Right now, it was about their
Because
presentation.
I've already spoken once, I cannot speak again. I just want to make sure of that. Bert Thurber, 11 Fort Hill Road. The brewery has made, in the proposals, that the memoranda that they have given to you, they have reiterated, they stated it twice, that parking will reinforce parking regulation, limiting the number of parking spaces, will help to regulate the number of people in the brewery, will help to regulate occupancy, and that occupancy will help to regulate parking. I actually see no particular logic to this. Let me start by saying that, asking a question, and the question is this. When it was determined that the occupancy of the tasting room would be a maximum of 87 people, was that based upon Mr. Bearsen's original contention that the tasting room was 2,000 square feet? Or was it based upon the later correction, which they did not include in their written statements but did slip in their oral statements so that it did not appear in the record, that it was in fact 600 square feet? That makes a significant difference. If it were actually 2,000 square feet, it is not. Then that would, and you had a maximum occupancy of 87, that would allow 23 square feet per person, or a space of just under 5 feet by 5 feet. If, on the other hand, the occupancy of 87 is based upon the actual, accurate figure of 600 square feet, that would mean that it would be just under 7 square feet per person, which means each person would be working in a space that is just over 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet, and that's not even taking into account the space occupied by the bar in a non-bar, the billiard table, or whatever else the band or whatever else may be in the room. So what I'm suggesting to you is we have a problem with the occupancy figure. The occupancy figure does not seem to be reasonable. It seems to have been based, I don't know, The question is, was it based on 2,000 square feet or was it based on 600 square feet? If it's based on 600 square feet, that's not much space per person. Now to the issue of the parking. So you have 60 parking spaces. I have not paid close attention to how many occupants there are per car going to the brewery. I have better things to do. But let's assume that there are at least 2 people in each car. Good chance there'll be 3 or 4. We now have 120 people. For a tasting room that has an occupancy, even this tight 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet, can only take 87 people. What do we do with the other people? They have said that they'll appoint someone who will have the responsibility for, if they're approaching the maximum number of people, who will go around at 15-minute intervals and count how many people there are in the tasting room. And if they reach a point where they have reached their maximum of 87, which I believe is too high a figure to begin with, then people will be told that they may not enter until other people have left. Well, that may take care of the tasting room. But if I had come to this destination and were eager to get into the brewery, and I got there and they told me that there was no space inside the brewery, I would have to wait, I would just go sit in my car in the parking lot. Or I would leave my car parked and I would walk up and down Fort Hill Road. Might walk all the way to Arcadia and back, walk down to the river and back. I would not leave the premises. Therefore, rather than one reinforcing the other, all that happens is when you reach what I believe is too high a figure of 87, you will have people who will be gathering in other locations. They will not be leaving the area. So rather than reinforcing it, it simply compounds the problems of people waiting in the parking lot. Or they leave and they come back. And that increases the traffic. So there are real issues concerning the relationship between the square footage, the occupancy, and the parking spaces. And I do not see a consistent logic to what they say. The figures do not add up. I'll speak to other issues at a later point.
Thank you. Anyone else that wants to speak to these issues that we're talking about right now? Parking, lighting?
I got one question.
Please come on up. Name and address, please.
Robert Petroskevich, 15 Fort Hill Road.
Did you get that?
No, I didn't.
I'm sorry.
Robert Petroskevich, 15 Fort Hill Road. On the occupancy, does that 87 include, which they are occupants of the building, the laborers that are inside? So if he has 10 people working for him, that means he only is allowed 77 people in the building.
No, I can address that. There's two certificates that came from the building department for the inspection. The 87 is for the tasting room, and 108 is for the entire building, including the manufacturing.
Well, I
component.
understand that, but if the people are in the tasting room serving them, they are an occupant of that tasting room.
They're a human in the space.
That's right. So if he has 5 people in that space, that means he has to take that off the people that he allows in the building. Right? Am I right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. All right, so we've heard from the applicant. We've discussed our site visit. It's now time for us to go through this. I'd like to start with what we've just been working on here and try to hash out the parking and lighting. Fresh in our mind, try to get that part done first. Does anyone on the board have any comments about this occupancy issue?
The occupancy was set by not by the planning board in this instance, right?
I had no part in setting the occupancy.
No, it's building fire.
Yeah.
Fire sets the
Yeah, I know we technically can do that as a condition, but we did not do that in this case. Yeah.
and I'm not sure what the fire's criteria is, what the fire department's criteria was. I'm trying to help answer some of your questions. But I mean, just personally, I have faith that they know what they're doing.
Have they been down on last Friday night? I don't think so.
So you felt it was too crowded?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it was a good crowd there. I went inside and to put another 50 people on top of what was in there on that particular Friday night would be pretty difficult.
Any
That's
other-
just an observation, I could be wrong.
I didn't look in, so. Anyone else? So we need to kind of come to a decision here whether or not we'd want to put a condition to alter that, or I don't even know if we have authority to alter that if the fire department is setting that. My instinct is no, I trust the fire department.
Yeah, it's
but
not our job.
I don't. So you're not interested in pursuing that?
No, I
nothing
don't
with
think
me.
we have any grounds
Right,
to
okay.
set occupancy.
All right. So then, with regard to paving 25 spaces and having the rest be auxiliary, lighting on the sides here, here, and here to match the lighting that we saw there, reflective lighting here, paved bituminous driveway there, and our additional request that we want to put in that's not in the memorandum of an additional light either here or here.
Right. Either way.
Are we good with the board with that? Do we have any comments, any disagreements?
I think it's a good idea to have a light there at the
I think
driveway.
we should have a light rather than the reflectors. And also, I wanted to ask, on the handicap, is that the front entrance to that building?
This is the front entrance right here.
Okay.
You gotta speak up so they can hear you. So I'm talking about a light here and all those lights in addition to the reflectors at the front.
Right.
Okay.
My only thing is that I'm having a hard time figuring out exactly how the 25 spots are gonna be paved, given the way that this is laid out, because we've got 14 here, we've got 11 here, so if you did like this, then you would get 25, but if you did this, you would get,
All right, well, they have to leave a gap
You would-
open so they can get people around this whole
right,
thing.
if you did these and these, you get 21, so the math is a little confusing.
I mean, it would obviously have to be this section and probably going all the way over. He's gotta get 25 spaces out of that. But that, I think that number forces a requirement that meets our needs.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, so just thinking this through, you know, I'm not, like, I appreciate the references of similar uses and what might be appropriate. The final number seems a little bit arbitrary to me, not necessarily unreasonable, but given, you know, I guess I just would like to maybe talk a little bit about what our actual basis for the number is, because, you know, we need to ground this, and
This is what was said, if you will allow.
yeah, I've got the,
You wanna read it?
you're talking, yeah, so we've got 22 spots for a restaurant or bar, 3 spots for other retail uses, 12 spots for a membership club, and 19 required for the manufacturing facility itself.
And that matches my research. Does it yours as well?
For the parking and the zoning?
Yes.
Well, you can check.
So at issue is where are we getting that number 6 extra for the tasting room from, and the tasting room itself has an occupancy of 87. So 6 and 87 doesn't match up to me.
No, it doesn't, but they're not, you have to understand that they're not making that up. They're looking at uses and saying, this is what the use says, this is what the use says, this is what the use says. And that's why they're not coming up with 6, they're coming up with 25, because, I mean, that's the reasonable.
Right, so I think what we're talking about here is we're not gonna have, these spaces are gonna be either in use for the tasting room or during the day for the manufacturing facility, but not really for both uses at the same time, so you can count the 25 spaces towards that.
I mean, the reality
Towards
is
the
none of
tasting
these
room.
uses apply, so we have to kind of
That's-
apply our.
That's what I'm saying, is
Yeah.
none of these uses apply, so does the number actually match the, you know, the capacity that we need here? So, I'm just curious what other people think about that.
And to be honest, 25 is a number higher than I was gonna ask.
25 is a good number.
I'm happy with that. Are you? I mean, if you're not, you should say.
It's not that I'm not happy with the number, I just want to make sure we arrive at it through a reasonable process.
We looked at the best precedents we can find for clear uses in there. 25 is over the requirement for any of them, 22 being the highest. So I mean, that would seem to me to
Right,
have
so the
exceeded-
question is, when you're talking about, this is an incidental use on top of primary use. So, yes, a restaurant would require 22 spots, but the manufacturing facility requires 19 spots. So if you add them together, you get more than 25. See what I'm saying?
You do, but you have, is it true you have 5 employees? Is that what you said? I may be misquoting.
8.5.
8.5. So, I mean, how much parking?
Right.
It's not a typical manufacturing, I don't know what's typical, so, but I mean, in this particular case, looking at it, the employee usage for parking seems pretty minimal.
So just to go back to the zoning though, for, if you want to calculate parking for a manufacturing industrial establishment using employees, it's 0.75 spaces for each employee of the combined employment of the 2 largest successive shifts. So essentially, if he's saying he's got 8.5 employees times 0.75, that results in 6.3 spaces. That would be required for the manufacturing side.
Leaving then of the, well, I mean, there's parking for 60, but paved, that would leave 9.
You can always put the employees in the back, too.
Yeah.
Jessica,
I mean, there's ways around this.
right. Jessica, in your opinion, is 25 a number that we can reasonably
Well,
arrive at?
it would be better to be able to fit it into numbers that match. So if you take 25 minus 6, that leaves the 19 spaces remaining that they propose to pave.
The restaurant or bar would have
Hold
22.
on. Whoops. How big is it? Sorry, how big's the tasting room again?
600 square feet?
600 square.
Okay, that's why I'm off. Which leaves 12 spaces. Per the
Which means-
requirements, it's 1 space for every 50 feet of assembly area. So if you use the membership club category, 600 divided by 50 is 12. So 12 plus the 6 is 18 spaces.
Okay.
So
So
they're
we
doing
arrive at a
above and
lower number.
beyond even,
And they're offering more, I think we take it.
I'm just trying to
Yeah,
figure
I
out the
want to know,
math.
I want to know the math, I just want to make sure we're
Yep.
clear on the process. I'm not,
Yeah.
it's
No, I
not
think
the
it's good
final
to,
number that
it's
we
good to
arrive
look
at.
at it.
Yeah.
Okay?
So, yeah.
Good, all right, so we're good on the number of 25. We're good on the lighting that was requested. So we're gonna have to come up with some language for a condition.
Yeah, this would be good.
At this point. And the condition is going to be, and I'm gonna attempt to use some of this here. I wanna find the bituminous language here. Bear with me. The planning board requires that 25 parking spots, including 2 handicap spots, be paved with bituminous material, including the driveway in the front area of the building with lighting. Should we do the lighting as a separate line? Let's
separate.
do it separate. Okay.
But we should say
Help me out here.
that it shall be graded and drained so as to dispose of all surface water accumulations.
Yep. Like that.
Is that,
Good.
are you amenable?
Oh, yeah.
Can you say,
Anyone-
can you say it one more time so I have
Sure.
it down correctly?
And shall be graded.
Hold
and-
on,
oh,
from
whole
the
thing?
beginning, from the
Sorry.
top, take it from the
Go
top,
ahead.
please. Planning board require that 25 spots, including 2 handicap parking
Spots
spaces.
be paved.
Be paved with bituminous
Bituminous surface in the front of the building, including the driveway.
in front of building, including driveway. Hold on, paved surface shall be graded and drained.
Yep. So as to dispose of all surface,
Dispose of all
surface water
Surface.
accumulation.
water.
And that's just the language from 10.145 about surfacing in the zoning ordinance.
Okay, I'm gonna read it back to you so that you Okay.
Thank you.
Planning board requires that 25 spots, including 2 handicap parking spaces, be paved with bituminous material in front of the building, including the driveway. Paved surface shall be graded and drained as to dispose of all surface water accumulation.
Sounds good. Is that good for everybody? Yeah? Okay. Move on to lighting. Thank you, Jessica. The planning board requires, this is a separate condition, that lighting be put on the rear, which direction? The north, west side.
It'd be south.
South is that way, so north, isn't that north?
Yeah.
North. So the northwest side and the front of the building. The rear, the northwest side and the front of the building. At least identical to the lighting that was on the southeast side.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, you're gonna have to.
Is
So
that
planning board
okay? I mean, we
requires
can
that
do better than that. Is
lighting
that-
be provided in the rear, the northwest side, and the front of the building.
Yeah, at least at a brightness level, I don't know if that's a good criteria, so you can help me here, that was on the southeast side. Because the southeast side we did like, that was bright,
Yeah.
that was well
Yeah,
done.
you could walk there, it'd be fine.
That was walk, so that's what we're looking for, is a match of what was there on the other 3 sides.
Is it sufficient to say, is it, too vague to say sufficient to illuminate all parking spaces?
And we can do that, add that in, sufficient to illuminate all parking spaces.
I feel like, well,
Is it too big and bulky? Help me out here.
Okay,
How-
so,
How would the board reword
It
this?
makes sense. If you're
Okay.
parking, you need a spot, you gotta walk, right?
I mean, we could just leave it with lighting sufficient to illuminate all parking spaces, but that's could be a little vague.
yeah, I'm just worried about how you use that side as a measurement.
And believe it or not, I still have more in that too, including reflectors in the driveway and a light,
Right.
either immediately to the left or right of the.
can I just throw something at the board to think about? Is impact of lighting to abutting properties and making sure that the light isn't shining as to go beyond the property limits. Again, it can be a separate condition, you can make as many as you need, but I think,
It's a good point. I did think about that already when we did the sidewalk though, and there's trees. I mean, it's mostly covered all up and down here though, right? So I mean, that lighting really doesn't get out. I think that's a valuable point for a comment for the neighbors. Does anyone want to speak to lighting reaching their homes?
The person that does Joyce.
I don't want to force you.
About the lighting?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't want it shining.
Do you want to come up
It
with?
already does.
Oh, can we look at the drawings on the plans?
If you want to come take a peek, please.
Does anybody else want to look at the plans?
I have no problem with that.
Joyce Petroscavich, 15 Fort Hill Road.
Thank you. So what's going on with the lighting?
We don't know, we didn't see the plans.
I mean, wouldn't you know already if
Well,
lighting is bothering you? Or?
There's really not that much on the sides.
Well, there's not,
Okay.
to me, that place is dark as it is.
Okay.
I mean, not right now. I went up there Friday night myself.
Okay.
And I shut my truck lights off and I couldn't see a thing.
Okay,
I
so-
mean, the lighting was absolutely black.
So
Yeah,
lighting as
dark
it is
in
right now isn't
Can't walk
is
in
not
there.
a bother to you. I mean, it's difficult
Right
to
now,
see
it-
here, but it's not like reaching your home or interfering.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're talking about because we're saying, hey, it's dark here.
Where is
We
your-
want to put lights in.
where is your
Oh,
home?
ab-
We're right
But we
absolutely.
want
over
to make
here.
sure the lights don't
And we see this
interfere
side.
with your
This is
quality
the
Well,
light.
we
hayfield.
appreciate that, but, you know,
We're not
I
talking
think
about any
they need
additional
more
lighting on
light.
this side.
If they're gonna have that many people coming in and out of that place, like you said, because that's gravel, there's big rocks, somebody tripped. The driveway's washing out.
Okay.
I don't think it's
Yeah.
wide
So-
enough.
so
for
the
Is there
light-
gonna be
cars.
lights in here for the people parking?
We're recommending a light here or here, right on either one of these 2 sides. Reflector
'cause-
lights here, additional lights in the front, additional lights on this side, additional lights in the rear, and we feel this side is already well lit.
Okay, now my
Yeah,
question,
that's the side
we
that's
have to
facing us.
make it-
Oh, excuse
Yeah.
me.
we have somebody trying to take minutes, and so if we
Okay.
can try to,
All right.
I
When
just
you
want to
folks
try to make
went to
sure that
see
she's
it.
getting everything and she knows who's
Okay.
speaking, so
Yeah.
if
All
we
right.
can
All
just.
right,
when
she's
you
right,
went to
you're the
see
one.
it,
So at this point, the question I have has been answered. The lighting is not currently interfering. It's not going
Right.
into your home. Okay.
Right.
Thank you very much. I
okay,
appreciate
can I
it.
ask one more question on this?
About lighting.
Oh,
and
it was
brief.
about parking.
And I should have you at the podium and everyone else.
Okay, it was about
Go back.
parking.
Yeah.
I just wanted to show this.
Go ahead, right up to the podium.
All right, between the 2 handicap, you got that space there.
Yeah.
Now, the day you went, did he have planters at the end somewhere there?
There were planters, and this was roped off up at the top as well.
Okay, how come you don't see the planters there after that day?
I don't see it as an issue. Are you in?
Because a lot of times, there's people parking all the way across.
You mean the planters were blocking? I mean, I saw them up at the top where the roped area was.
Yeah, that's
Or
what I said.
back, it looked like
Yeah.
they were back a little further
Yeah.
on Saturday morning
Okay.
and stuff. And usually there's people parking all the way and there's no spaces.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Well, I don't know what to do about that.
Well, there will be marked parking
Yeah,
spaces.
that would
Parking
take care of
spots,
it,
yeah.
I think.
Spots, excuse me. Okay. So, back to the lighting language and our condition. You brought up a good point. We should consider the neighbors. We've done that. It's not currently blocking. So the quality of the light that we put up here, and if we put it over here, this area is more, is blocked well. I don't know that that will necessarily impede.
It shouldn't.
So,
We can just say aimed such that it doesn't
Yeah.
shine into Fort Hill Road or something
Yeah.
like that.
but I mean, that would just be,
Yeah.
why would they
It
do that?
probably won't.
It has to be into the.
Well, it's gotta shine out that way anyway.
Yeah, it's not, I
Yeah.
feel that's unnecessary. Okay, so, can you read off what we have so far?
So you had was, planning board requires that the lighting will be provided on, in the rear, the northwest side, in front of the building, and then you started saying at least at a illumination similar to
The
something,
south-
something,
the
something.
southeast side.
I think you, yeah, okay.
Just,
So-
don't, maybe not add that part.
Well, that's why I brought up the question in terms of
Sufficient to
making,
illuminate the
making
parking
that it's
lot.
not,
How about that? Sufficient to
Yeah.
illuminate the parking lot.
That's the
your-
safety concern,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So
That's-
forget the southeast and make it instead sufficient to illuminate the parking lot.
Right.
And reflectors will be put at the end of the driveway by Fort Hill Road.
hold on. Condition 3. What is it, reflectors
Yeah.
will be placed
The end of the driveway
at
near Fort Hill Road.
end of driveway.
And a light will be placed at the beginning of the driveway on either
Okay.
side.
Like,
What kind of light is the question? Sufficient to illuminate the parking lot.
the parking lot or the driveway? You're asking for a light at the,
Here or here.
so you're asking for reflectors and some sort of
Reflectors
street,
down
like
here.
a street lamp?
And one big
It's,
light up
um,
here, because this area is dark and the only other light is coming off the building, and this area was the darkest for me.
Yeah.
I can't see that,
It's-
but that's okay.
It's the top of the driveway, not the bottom of the driveway.
Okay, so you want a
there's
light-
just a dark spot here
Yeah.
when you're coming in.
Okay, so a light at the, and you,
The top
okay,
of the
so,
driveway. On either side.
So a light post?
Yep.
So 2 light posts? You want one on either side? Is what you're asking?
No,
One?
I think you meant one side or the other.
One
Oh,
side
no,
or the other.
One side or
Light
the other.
post will
One
be-
light post.
Placed at the top of the driveway.
That's where one of us tripped.
Along the parking lot,
Okay.
or to light the parking lot, or, I don't know.
To illuminate the parking lot. Sufficient to illuminate the parking lot.
I can read this later.
It's a mouthful.
Okay.
And when you're ready, if you can kind of read that back.
A light post will be placed at the top of the driveway to illuminate the park.
Sufficient
I
to
don't-
illuminate the parking
I
lot.
don't like how it's reading, but sufficient to illuminate the parking lot.
Okay.
And you have it too, right?
Can you do the whole thing?
You want all 4 of them? Or
Ju-
just that one?
Just the lighting.
Just the lighting?
All lighting.
Okay. Planning board requires that lighting be provided at the rear, the northwest side in front of the building, sufficient to illuminate the parking lot. The paved parking lot, or the whole
The
thing?
entire park.
The entire,
I'm gonna add the paved and gravel parking lot.
okay, that's fine.
Number 3, reflectors will be placed at the end of the driveway on Fort Hill Road. Number 4, a light post will be placed at the top of the driveway sufficient to illuminate the parking lot.
Is everyone good with that? Does anyone have any additional conditions relating to parking or lighting?
Yeah, it's gotta be marked. Gotta put that in there, right?
Be marked, you mean the handicap parking?
Yeah, well, the gravel, he's gonna mark,
Auxiliary
he's gonna mark that.
spaces being
Oh,
striped.
that's right, what she said he was going to mark. Okay, and so the fifth one, do you wanna come up with some wording for that?
The, all spaces, including the gravel auxiliary spaces, shall be striped. Is that
Painted?
painted?
Well-
What's the technical term?
I don't know.
It's striped for the paved. I mean, you could use the same term for the gravel. You sure you want to go this way? Just telling you. I'm just warning you that
Oh,
this.
you said before that they don't have to mark them.
You have,
right.
what I'm telling you is in the past, you've not required them to be marked.
Yeah,
If you do this now, you are gonna be setting a
Setting a
precedent for
precedent.
yourself that
Yeah.
you are gonna probably require it
later.
of,
yeah.
there's no
Strike that one,
waiver
yes.
language to.
Yeah.
Yes,
Strike.
no, that one's gone.
So-
Moving on.
So just the, but, and do we don't need a condition that the 25 spaces will be marked,
You
do
could,
we?
if you feel like you wanna do that, you can say that, for me personal, as the ADA coordinator of the city, it's more important to me that at least that there's some condition that talks about the handicap spaces will be not only striped, but properly marked as handicap spaces.
Right.
So that, there's no question.
That's
Okay.
fine with me. Is everyone else good with that? Can you use that exact language?
What did I say?
The handicap spaces will be marked and, missed the rest of it.
Spaces will
Be
be
marked to
striped.
indicate, striped, fine.
I mean, all the spaces, if we're gonna say that, we should say all the spaces will be striped.
Yeah, on the asphalt.
Yeah, the paved spaces.
Yeah.
And then there we are again in our.
Okay, but then we
in
can
our
just, you
precedent.
can just add something about handicap spaces will also have, signage or something, required,
Marked as handicap.
marked as handicap, something like that. Okay,
Will we-
so
yeah.
I hate to do
All-
it, but we have to hear it, so.
all paved parking spaces will be striped.
And marked, and handicap spaces will be marked as handicap.
Handicap spaces will be marked as such.
Is there like
as
a
such, that's fine.
particular requirement for marking handicap spaces that we can
Well, there is a
cite?
handicap parking provision in the general ordinances.
I think that language is gonna get us where we need to go.
Yeah.
Can't imagine we'd need to dig too much deeper down that road.
I just thought if she knew off the top of her head, like, per whatever section.
But we could just say per section 1-33.3 of the
Awesome.
general ordinances.
Great.
I mean, it just says that they have to, white lettering with the blue background, with the
Yeah, that
words
sounds
and.
great.
Yeah,
Okay.
just put the section in there.
Yep.
All right, so we've got, I think now, we've got the parking and the lighting with our conditions marked. I wanna revisit some of our earlier conditions.
May I interrupt about, I'm sorry, about the pavement, the surfacing requirement? Just because we were tracking the actual language, I think it just said bituminous material and didn't account for the option for cement, concrete material. And I
She's right,
just
and I
saw
did miss that. Can we add that language in?
Paved with bituminous or.
Or, can you repeat that?
Cement,
exactly?
concrete.
Cement, concrete. No, that's fine.
Okay,
Unless someone here disagrees with that.
No.
It was my fault, I missed it. Okay, so, we've talked about some other conditions. I'm gonna move on to the next, now that we have those out of the way. And I wanna try to get the sound one, outdoor music sound control. At the last meeting, it was discussed that a 4-foot high, 20-foot wide, at that point, plexiglass barrier would be used. You, I think, mentioned in this and in your presentation that it doesn't necessarily have to be plexiglass, you just want it to be barrier. We kinda had the question and a little bit of homework, and it's hard to without any, professionals to tell me, is this sufficient? To find out if a barrier like this is going to actually help in reducing noise. I did my own research, which certainly doesn't qualify as expert in any, but the simplest of searches shows that that plexiglass in particular is used regularly as a sound barrier.
Especially in airports. That's where the idea came from.
It was just all over. It's in heavy use.
Right.
So, but now you're saying not plexiglass, which means it could be any material, so that kind of makes things a little dicey, but.
No, I'd rather stay with the plexiglass. That's why I mentioned it at the last meeting, because he's right, the airports use it a lot, and it will be.
Yeah, I found
An
pages and
excellent
pages
sound
and
barrier.
pages of people successfully using it in my research.
Right.
As a good sound barrier. So. Do you guys have any comments?
As long as it's a suitable, as plexiglass is a suitable material for reducing the sound or
As long as it works.
deflecting it or whatever.
Well, I'm not an expert.
If that
so
doesn't work,
I
now to
throw
try
that out
something
there. I'm assuming you all did some research on it as well. I mean, did you come to the same
It's gonna have to,
conclusion?
it's gonna have to work.
No, I only came up with that because of the airports and small planes
Okay.
areas use plexiglass as a sound
As a sound
barrier.
barrier. Does anyone have any comments on that? Do they feel that will be sufficient?
I don't know.
Highways don't use it.
I have no way of knowing if it will work or
I'm
not.
sorry, can,
I don't know.
name and, if we're gonna keep that in the record, a member of the public just spoke. And
Do you
so-
want to come up and state that for us all to hear?
Or
please?
just state your name and,
Denise Serwick, 66 Clark Street.
thank you.
And your comment was that highways don't use
Highways don't
plexiglass.
use plexiglass
And the point, if I'm understanding correctly, you're trying to make
for
is
noise barriers.
that that would be louder than live music. Okay. So here we are. My feeling on this is that that's probably the best we're going to get, and it's good enough. Both for me are true. No.
Agreed.
Any
So-
disagreements?
So what you're proposing is that we stick with the plexiglass requirement?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Jess, do you see any precedents that you feel would?
The only time, in my knowledge, since I've been here, that the board has addressed sound is in mixed-use buildings downtown where you required soundproofing, but you didn't get specific about the material. However, there are fire codes in terms of soundproofing for indoor. And so there are already regulations that were in place that were gonna define what materials they were gonna use, and it was a whole different set
Right.
of regulations.
But this is outdoor.
I mean, it may be that my research showed that plexiglass work. I didn't do research on other materials because that's what was put forth before us. So that was the point of my focus. So I came here prepared to say, okay, I looked at this and it looks like it's going to work. You're suggesting here that it could be any material, and I don't know if that's for beautification or expense or what that might be, but that puts me back to where I don't know if it's going to work. So I feel I need to require plexiglass because that's where my research was.
Right.
Are you guys on board with that?
Yes, we are.
All right, so then I think we had a condition before that said, in addition, there were two of them, live music between the hours of 2 and 8, and let's take a look at what that was exactly here. I think they commented.
Yeah, I'd like to see the minutes from the last meeting in addition to what's in the memo.
Do you have them? I have them here.
I don't know.
Can you take me a sec to pull them out?
Yeah, thanks.
What I had written down was no amplified outdoor music shall be held between the hours of 2 and 8, which, in my interpretation, means that somebody could amplify music at 9 or at 1.
Wait, if you said no amplified outdoor music between 2 and 8?
That's what I had written
Oh,
down.
so it's in, okay, that needs to be changed.
And this
Just
says
the opposite.
Yeah, the
this
opposite.
allowed only between 2 and 8.
Yeah,
Right.
okay, so let's get that
My
down.
notes could be wrong, but that's what I had written down in my notes.
Okay, can you read the way we want it?
Well,
As
my
of as of last meeting.
recollection is that we were talking about limiting outdoor amplification to between the hours of 2 p.m. and 8 p.m.
Right.
That's it. And do we still agree on that?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Is that what everyone remembers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Does that, do you have that, Jess?
Outdoor amplified music shall be held only between the hours of
2
2
p.m.
and 6 p.m.
To 8.
2 and 8
Oh,
p.m.
8, sorry.
We have someone who wants to make it.
Is there a hand? I'm sorry. Is this about the sound? Please come on up. And I think I saw another hand there. We'll get to you next if I did it. Oh, okay. Please come on up. Name and address, please.
Okay, my name is Ray Redfern, and I'm on the licensing board. And we issued the entertainment license, okay? When the owners came in, they applied for an entertainment license. When we issued the license, it was only for the tasting room with acoustic type music. It did not include the outside whatsoever. So with them playing the music outside, they do not have a license, entertainment, to be playing music out there. So it's in violation of the entertainment license. So it's an issue that we would have to take up on the licensing board because it's in violation of it.
That's good to know.
Okay.
Okay?
So I don't think that changes our putting limitations here in. It would just mean we'd put this
No,
limitation.
it would have to be
You-
taken
you'd
care
have
of
to
at
come
the
to you, yeah.
licensing
So that-
board. But we're talking about the music outside, loud music.
Okay.
So what we would be doing is saying, if they were properly licensed to do it, they
Right.
would be limited to these specific
Yeah, I mean,
hours.
Right.
regardless with the license, with our language for when they can do it, they still have to have a license.
They have to have a license.
Okay.
And just a reminder to the board that all of our decisions actually have language in there that says that, that the applicant, it makes them aware that there may be other permits that they're required in order to be in compliance with,
Right.
this decision. So there's language in there, in that decision that states that.
Oh, good, I
Thank
was
you, that was
gonna
informative.
ask
Right.
that we, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask
So
that we
those
put that in.
decisions that I've been sending you as review, there's
Yeah.
language in there.
Good.
Yeah, that's what I said in the first place.
Okay,
That's
so,
why I sent them to you.
was there another question on the sound issue? Okay, too many, I think you had it up first.
I'm John Knivel, 17 Fort Hill Road. My big beef with the brewery is the noise. You know, of course, it wasn't what we were sold. A couple guys on the board, the way this was presented to the neighbors, and we were all in support of it. Now you can't find anybody on our street that is. And it's due to traffic, noise. And I understand Eric's, now he's trying to backpedal and try to make us all, give us some concessions and stuff. We went to the licensing board, and apparently they were sold a different bill of goods. So, my only concern with what you're proposing with the barrier is that 4 feet is awfully short. I know we don't have the pictures here tonight, but we showed pictures of amplifiers that were up this high. So, maybe you can make some concession that I don't know if something this tall is gonna stop amplifiers that are above it, even if they're facing the other direction. So maybe you could take some consideration into,
Thank you.
Right, what I think we should do is allow amplified music, but let the licensing board discuss, have the, tell them the size of the amplifiers and stuff like that. No, we can allow them to have amplified music, but they have to set the standards.
You think that condition should be before the licensing board, not us?
Absolutely.
Do you agree with that?
In other words, we allow it, and it can be amplified, but they would control it.
You're talking about the amplifiers, not the
Sound
sound
barrier.
wall
Right.
thing.
Right.
Just the amplifier.
Yes, that makes sense to me.
There's some other questions there, but I have to say that I find that above 4 feet to be reasonable. Asking it to be a little bit higher. Why did you select 4 feet?
Just in our research, that seemed like a
Are you
reasonable number.
planning on having amplifiers higher than that?
He doesn't know that.
It just,
You don't, yeah, okay, that's fair, that's fair.
You won't know
So,
until
yeah,
you
I mean,
get it.
typically what we do for, I just wanna kind of take a step back for a minute. Typically what we do for sound mitigation, for things like, whatever sound is coming from an industrial plant or something, is a permanent, fence or plantings of some kind. This portable sound barrier is sort of a compromise that we've been considering. We're all sort of thinking like, plexiglass, will this work? What is this? Maybe we need to, take a step back and think about a more permanent, traditional sound barrier that's more in line with what we normally would do for something like this.
Well, the argument that was made that plantings won't work in there, I tend to agree. I mean, the kind of sound we're talking about, I don't know that a tree or a bush, I
What
like
about
that
like
as
a
something.
Like a privacy fence or something like that.
Like a wall or a barrier that's
Yeah.
somewhere out in the field out
Yeah.
here. What do you guys think of that?
I just think we should approve the amplified music and let the licensing board take care of the rest.
Right.
But that doesn't,
It's got nothing to do with us. Once the licensing board gives them the license, They dictate how high, how loud, how long, or whatever.
But we routinely do, require sound mitigation. That's part of our conditions.
Well, the reason why I took the plexiglass, because if you see the field back there, if you put a barrier back there, the sound is still going to carry through that. So the reason for putting the plexiglass near them is to block that from going that way.
I think we need to come to a decision on this. So there is an idea right now for the plexiglass, and we should find out if the board wants to pursue that, or go another route, or get rid of it. So let's start with the plexiglass.
Can I just, again, refer you to number L of the criteria for review and approval for the special permit? Adequacy of the methods to ensure that the use will not constitute a nuisance by reason of unacceptable level of air, water pollution, excessive noise, or visually flagrant structures and accessories. So, to some extent, it is under your jurisdiction in terms of noise. I mean, I understand where Harry's going, but I just want to let you know that that is one of the criteria for review, and that you need to at least find a finding of some sort
regarding it. I agree.
Regarding it.
Okay.
That's what I said.
So, I've got a couple questions out there. So why don't we do those before we, please come up before we.
Stilbert, Thurber, 11 Fort Hill Road. You're dealing with what you, in the minutes, called offensive uses. And at the moment, you're debating the hours. Another part of that was the days. And I bring this up because at the last meeting, there was actually differences among the different board members concerning the issue of hours and the issue of days. And on this, as on virtually every other issue, the acting chair supported the brewery, in fact went beyond what the brewery requested, because when they proposed what conditions they would be willing to have imposed upon them, he suggested, I'm reading from the minutes, Zarva stated that 2 to 8 p.m. time period was too restrictive and not business friendly. James, I'm skipping a sentence, James said he did not see the necessity for restricting music to certain days of the week. So the question is not simply a question of hours, it is also a question of days. And that brings me to the larger point, which I need to make now because unfortunately my wife might have to leave. And that is, I understand why you all need to spend so much time going through point by point criteria for special permit approval 1279. I appreciate that, that's fine. But that's not really the reason they proposed the amendment to the special permit, and that's not really the reason we're here to respond. By spending all of the time focused on those criteria, subparts A through L, we're actually missing the primary point. And the primary point is that they came to 2 different meetings and proposed amendments to the original special permit in which they agreed if you would in fact accept some of their interpretation, which we do not accept.
Okay, we're talking about sound now.
I'm sorry, but I need to leave, and I need to make this point, and it is a larger point. You're talking about sound, and then you'll be talking about sewerage. By the way, we had our septic tanks pumped this week, and Whiteley said to me when I said something about, well, I guess since they've got the new sewerage line in, we can connect to that, and we won't need the septic
Mr.
tank
Server,
anymore.
I don't know about your sewage. I apologize for whatever that is that you're dealing with, but we're talking about sound now, so I need to keep you on
Can we
topic,
not
please.
allow me to speak to other points as well?
Right now, we're dealing with
Okay,
this.
then-
I'm sorry that you can't be here
Once
later, but we're trying to keep on focus so we don't get
the chair,
distracted.
are supporting the brewery by restricting what and
I
when
understand
and
you may
how
feel that
long
way.
we can speak.
I need to ask you to step down
No,
unless you have something about sound.
I go back to the broader issue. They have proposed 2 amendments to the special permit. And we have not discussed the conditions that they said that they were willing to impose upon themselves, because we spend all our time focusing on points A through L. I'm not surprised at all.
Please step away
Okay,
from
from
the
the
podium.
beginning, you have been that most
You're out of order,
outspoken,
sir.
consistent voice supporting the brewery.
That's quite enough.
Even going to the May
All right.
meeting where when he attempted to
Come
withdraw
on.
his application.
Would you please
for
let
a-
us continue
for
the meeting?
for
We have a
beer
lot to
garden,
get through
You
tonight.
encouraged him not to do
Please
so.
sit down.
Mr. Thurber, I will call the authorities if I need to, if we cannot keep order in this meeting. I'm not kidding.
Thank you.
Okay. So,
May I respond
yes.
to the noise issue? So I just want to reiterate what Jessica pointed out, that excessive noise is the issue. And the only thing that, other than from just general members of the public, you have people that live on the street that claim the noise is too loud. You have the brewery saying it's not too loud. The only third-party, non-interested evidence anyone has that we were able to come up with were the police reports, and at no time did they find excessive or unreasonable noise.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're talking about noise here. We've got this plexiglass. We have some debate. There was some debate as to whether or not it was in our purview. It is, as Jessica pointed out. Plexiglass is really all we have to work with. I'm comfortable with that, but we need to decide. I think you want something more.
My problem is less about the plexiglass and more about the portable nature of it, because I think that that's going to be prone to user error, and also it just feels sort of murky to me. So my preference would be for a permanent structure of some kind.
Okay.
So yeah, I think I'm just more comfortable with a hedgerow or a fence, or something along those lines.
Where would you? I think right now they're sort of saying the plexiglass would go right here.
Right. So the outdoor music, which is currently not permitted for, is happening on the front porch here. So they're talking about blocking off this spot. I mean, here's the thing, like, I'm not a sound engineer, but I think if we have photographs showing amplifiers that are up higher than 4 feet, then that's not going to be sufficient. And so we may need a 6-foot structure.
A permanent structure, like a piece of wood or something that blocks it off. How do y'all feel about that, as opposed to a temporary?
Well, how high do you want to go? 8 foot, 6 foot, 10 foot? It's
We
you
are
have
so
to
not
start
qualified
somewhere.
to answer these questions.
You
Go ahead.
have to start somewhere.
Hi, my name is Nicola Krahowski. I am the clerk to the licensing board. I just want to clarify something. Ray had spoke about that they were not licensed for outdoor. There are no restrictions on their entertainment license. I understand that Ray and Kelly on the board were under the assumption, but there are no restrictions that are on the license.
Okay.
So I
So
just
they
wanted to
can
put
have
that out there.
outdoor-
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, so I may have misspoken about whether it's currently permitted for or not, but what we're talking about is if there is to be outdoor music, either now or in the future, we want to mitigate the sound that's coming from that. And we know that there has been music there in the past, and that sound has been an issue for the neighbors.
I agree that it has been an issue. I mean, it's
So I
certainly.
think we've
been brought up.
established
And,
that.
and I think they want to do something about it.
Yeah.
And it's just about trying to come up with a board here and I think where we're down to now is a height and either permanent or temporary. So why don't we deal with the height? That might be easier. How about 6 feet instead of 4? That's high enough that it's up above most people's heads. And I think that should cover any difficulties in, that were, it being too small. That's the standard size of a fence, I think.
Right, that's why I was,
Right.
that's why I was
Is
proposing.
and
6
that's my logic in the decision-making process of coming to 6 feet. Is that amenable to the board? How do you feel about that?
Makes sense.
6 feet.
Let's have it 7.
Well, I'd rather actually keep it 6 in order for it to be consistent
Okay.
with the
6
fencing
feet.
requirements.
Yeah.
That would.
Now let's talk about the permanent or the temporary. Temporary allows them to move it. If they were to do something, I mean, right now they're doing it here, and that's sort of where they want to do it, but licensing, I mean, we're not putting a stipulation as to where it's going to be on the property at this point. If they had it temporary, then it's something they could put wherever they are. There's a point to why temporary might be advantageous.
I think temporary is fine, if he uses it.
Has to be used.
That's the key. Is he gonna follow what we're telling him to do?
I assure you, if I do not, Thurber will let you guys know.
Do we have any actual control over temporary structures? I mean, just,
So we can't
No,
actually
right.
require, okay, that's a valid point.
We don't have control over temporary.
I mean, we could still put a structure, a decision in there, or a comment rather, saying that that when playing loud music or amplified music outdoors, yeah, I'm losing it. Amplified music outdoors, you would have to use a temporary sound mitigation structure, right? We can still do that.
I'm sorry, you're looking at me. I'm spacing out for a moment. So you want to do what? You want to put up a...
The concept of putting in a stipulation that a temporary structure would have to be used when amplified outdoor music is to mitigate sound. Is there precedence for something like that?
Not that I'm aware of, but that doesn't, you know.
So if you're talking temporary, what are you going to use?
It's a 20-foot long, 6-foot high, or 6-foot high.
20 feet long by 6 foot high,
Yeah.
plexiglass.
Plexiglass or
Right,
fence.
which I think would be easier to move, and if it doesn't work, who does it?
Yeah, but if it's
then-
6 feet high, how do you get it in and out of doors and stuff like that?
Well, it'd probably be something permanent left
What's that?
outdoor, probably in the back of the building.
Yeah.
Probably left in the back of the building where they are, and have it brought out when they have the exterior music.
This is insane. We have to get through this. And it's a difficult thing for us. We like the idea of sound mitigation. A sound mitigation barrier must be used when playing outdoor amplified music. Maybe we're just overthinking this.
Right.
And we just need to say, we just need to put it down to a sound mitigation barrier must be used when playing outdoor amplified music and leave it at that. I mean, the frank truth is we're not qualified to put stipulations in beyond that.
Very true. Totally agree.
But the suggestion was.
Is it about sound?
Yeah.
Come on down.
Do we have to go down? I just want it.
It's the camera.
Kind of
It's open meeting. I have to, I'm sorry.
She's,
You didn't make her come
What?
down.
she's just saying for any type of entertainment, not just
the
sound,
amplified.
not just amplified music.
What's
Amplified
what's
outdoor.
louder than that?
Any kind,
Amplified outdoor.
any kind.
I don't, no, I mean, that would be the city, I mean, we don't have any sound ordinance per se here in Easthampton, so. I'm comfortable with amplified outdoor.
Right.
You?
Yeah.
Yes, no?
Yes.
So I think we have some language?
So a sound mitigation barrier must be used when you want it just for amplified?
Amplified outdoor music.
When amplified outdoor,
Be nothing louder than that. What else could, how's it be
Yeah,
there?
that's the worst.
when amplified outdoor music like is being played is, must be used.
When playing amplified outdoor music. Playing, it might not be the right word.
Yeah,
But
it's,
now you leave the barrier up to them.
Yeah, I do, but we're not qualified to
leaving
make the
it up to
decision as to what
them,
the
and
barrier
if-
is, so.
I may tweak that to be more grammatically correct when
Okay,
I draft the
yeah.
decision, but
Okay,
I
so
got the essence of it.
let's talk about the hours. We fixed the hours.
Oh, wait a minute.
Could you, I'm sorry.
not
you-
through
Oh,
with
I
this.
apologize. I didn't catch that. Go ahead.
No, you're leaving them up to what structure they're gonna use
Yeah,
to block that amplified sound.
that's right.
The only suggestion I made was the plexiglass. I like it read into that with the suggestion of use of plexiglass.
I'm in favor of that.
I mean, it's not something detrimental. He can try it. If it doesn't work, he can always say, we're gonna try something
Well,
different.
no, if we put this language in here, he's required to use what we put in there. So we have to be careful to, you understand what I'm saying?
I understand that, but I'm saying that if we use that as a suggestion, if he comes back to us and say, that isn't working.
I think because, well, I agree, the
So, Jessica,
plexiglass in my
if
research
we-
is.
If
Go ahead.
we word it as a suggestion of the plexiglass and it doesn't work, does he have
How
a
about this?
viable
How about
reason
this?
to come back?
Go ahead.
A sound mitigation barrier such as plexiglass must be used when amplified music is played outdoors.
That's
Yeah,
good.
sounds great.
I
That's
think
good. Thank you, Jessica.
Okay. Can you read back the hours that we had, the statement we've made about hours?
Outdoor amplified music shall be held only between the hours of 2 and 8 p.m.
Okay, are we good with that?
Yeah.
Have we dealt with
That's
sound?
the way we dealt with that.
We're done
Yeah.
with sound?
Yep.
Okay, that's 3 issues that we've got out underway. I'd like now to talk about the language in the comment section of the original permit that is, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand there. What would you, are you talking about sound? Okay, yeah, I missed you. My bad.
Speaking of
Mr.
sound,
Duda. Man.
The man.
Hi, Jason Duda, 13 Winter Street, and also a member of the licensing board. I just have one question that might help us out later on, is what you just said in the condition for sound as far as the mitigation, sound mitigation, as Jessica so eloquently put it. Is that, in your opinion, as a board, a tacit approval for outdoor amplified music, as far as the planning board is concerned?
It's a restriction if it's used. I certainly don't believe that I'm approving or disapproving it. However, that's up to you guys as well and what you intend. My intent is that it's not my job to approve whether or not he gets outdoor music or not.
Right.
It's my job to make sure that uses are safe to the public and to the community.
It would be up to the licensing board, wouldn't it?
Well, that's why I'm asking. I'm wondering because the language itself implied that you weren't denying them permission in the special permit that you would issue. You're not denying.
We are not.
Amplified music.
No.
Outdoors.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we got the sound done, and let's talk about the language. Last meeting we were here, we said that we kind of generally approve of the language that that the amendment wanted to add. I've had a little bit of time to think about that, and this new memorandum we just got put some language before us that's a little bit different. You added a few pieces into it. I want to look at that again and make a suggestion of something completely different. And my thought was that maybe that language should say, the facility will primarily produce and bottle alcoholic beverages with secondary uses to include a tasting room and retail of products and merchandise. The reason I suggest that compared to the language that's being presented is the language that's being presented is kind of keeping in the old language and then kludging in these exceptions. And that's muddy. And I don't think that's good work on our part.
No, that second one sounds, that first one you said, it sounds pretty
Can
good.
you say it one more time?
Yeah.
I'm not good auditorially.
That
I just
sounds
have to
really
hear
good.
it more than once, sorry.
Sounds good.
The facility will primarily produce and bottle alcoholic beverages with secondary uses to include a tasting room and retail of products and merchandise.
That sounds good.
What, would it be possible to say incidental, just because that's the language that's used and allowed
Where?
to a manufacturing instead of secondary?
Incidental.
Incidental.
So will primarily,
That's
will primarily produce
Okay, you're
and
dealing
bottle
with a whole different
alcoholic
issue, okay.
beverages.
I wonder actually.
yeah, I'm good with that.
I wonder actually if it would make sense to state what the actual primary use is in the table of uses, which is manufacturing facility.
Yeah,
because
with the decisions that I typically draft in the narrative aspect of the decision that talks about basically what the applicant has asked and what you've reviewed, basically a summary of what has been put before the board. I typically put in there, in addition to, the advertising dates and all that stuff, what category this is being reviewed under the table of uses, and I say the number, and I put in parentheses the use next to that number, so that it's clear, so that we always know, moving ahead,
yeah, I'd like
what
to
use
make sure,
category this even is being allowed to be permitted under.
because that was not in the original permit,
Yep.
and so when we went to review this, the
That's
first
smart.
question was, what is this?
What is it?
Yeah,
So-
it's in the like almost the first or second paragraph of the decisions.
This
It'll say what
simplifies
uses.
and clarifies instead of taking the mess and then making exceptions to it.
Right.
I say the mess needs to go, and we need to do our
Right.
job as a good job and clarify it from beginning to end.
Sounds good.
Yeah. The only other issue I can see is that we don't have a definition for tasting room, so when we say tasting room as an incidental use, that's maybe still a little bit muddy. But I think we're sort of in a tricky situation because that's what this is. We're not in a situation where we feel that use is prohibited, but theoretically, we could have a problem where what the definition
People
of
coming up with
tasting
tasting
room comes into play later on. I guess it would default to the dictionary definition since it's not defined.
Yeah,
And
the
is there a
zoning,
dictionary?
the zoning kicks to, if anything that's not defined, there's language in here that says, Words not defined in either place shall have meaning given in the Webster's Unabridged Dictionary, 3rd edition.
Which may or may not have tasting room in there. But then there's also something about industrial language. It says,
Uses listed in the table of use regulations under the classes retail and service trades and wholesale trade and manufacturing shall be further defined by the Standard Industrial Classification Manual published by the U.S. Bureau of Census.
Say that 3 times fast.
so I think we're probably covered
Yeah.
with that. It just,
Okay.
yeah.
So shall I read it again?
Yes, please.
The facility will primarily produce and bottle alcoholic beverages with incidental uses to include a tasting room and retail of products and merchandise. Now, I'd like your opinion. Well, does that cover what you're attempting to do here? I want to,
The facility will primarily produce.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I've got this thing. that
Produce
just
and
went on.
bottle alcoholic beverages with incidental uses of a tasting room and retail of products and merchandise.
Retail, I thought we
What's the brand new opinion?
Back to six-packs, that's retail.
What about,
I think it should somehow relate back to how the ABCC defines what we have in this tasting room. Like, this is how we sort of got in this mess before. It wasn't, like, if we're discussing what tasting room is,
Yeah.
I think that that's an issue. So I think that we maybe even have to present with you what we actually have in a legal form, saying that we're a farmer brewer, allowed a pouring permit, this, that, and the other, rather than, because what's a tasting room?
So you're suggesting that the language we
I think
should
that the attorney has
adopt would be,
with incidental uses,
As allowed under a farmer brewery pouring
Yeah.
permit.
well, not the, well, I guess that would limit it to the tasting room. What
Right.
about just the farmer brewer license, which includes in that the authority to get the pouring permit?
I'm looking to the licensing board. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I want to make sure that the language is.
Yeah, we all want it
did you
to
say
be
you had a
good,
copy
so-
of the license?
I have a
or the-
copy of, yeah, I've got a copy of the pouring permit. You all have copies, I'm sure, in your,
Yeah.
I'll need this back though. It's the only copy I have. And then this is the farmer brewery license. So is the license, is the pouring permit attached to the license? Is it like the license is the umbrella with the pouring permit attached to it? Okay.
Yeah, so the law that allows them to get the farmer brewer license has a section in there that allows them to also get a pouring permit.
So what we're talking about right now is one word, one phrase, tasting room, and making sure that we fully identify it so that the uses that we're all agreeing with here, which include the use of the farmer's pouring permit, are included in that use. So we're saying expand tasting room. Right now we have the facility will primarily produce and bottle alcoholic beverages with incidental uses to include a tasting room and retail of products and merchandise. So it'd be incidental uses to include a tasting room.
No, with incidental uses as permitted under a farmer brewery license, correct?
Farmer brewery license.
That works for me. Does that work for you guys?
That's what I have.
But then I think you also, we would also want you to add the language.
The products and merchandise?
Right.
Yes. Did you get that, Jess?
No, as permitted, hold on, as permitted under the farmer brewery
Brewery license.
license, including,
And then it
Or-
would be in retail of products and merchandise.
such, I mean, there's, I need some word to connect. So such
Yeah.
as, or, like, I guess I don't know where.
Oh, I think it's and also.
It's and also, yes.
Oh,
it's
all
a
right,
new-
thank
it's a
you.
new thought.
But I'm
And
confused
also-
about this.
The farmer brewery.
Yeah.
Under the farmer brewery license and also retail? What,
It
I'm sorry, I
said,
missed
yeah,
it.
no, I'm sorry, it said, and retail and products and merchandise. I'm sorry, and retail of products and merchandise. That's a separate of its use.
Okay, from the
Okay.
top. The facility will primarily produce and bottle alcoholic beverages with incidental uses as permitted under the farmer brewery license and retail of products and merchandise, as well as retail of products and merchandise.
Okay. So is that amenable to you?
Think so?
We'll see you again in 5 years.
Doesn't feel super clear to me, or I'm
Doesn't.
confused about,
See, in probably
I'm
2 years.
confused about making the incidental use contingent on a license, because I feel like that could get confusing if there was ever.
If it gets revoked or the
if
state
it-
law
ex-
changes. or-
Exactly. So,
Maybe keep the original
kinda hard
incidental
to
uses
word
to
that.
include a tasting room and retail of products and merchandise, and then expand on it, which allows for the use of a farmer's.
No, you can't, no, you're putting,
going
no,
back over.
you're
Yeah,
going
Yeah, okay,
backwards.
all right.
Yeah, you're
Help me out
going
here then, someone throw
backwards.
me a bone, how do we get it?
Refer to the licensing board.
or I'm wondering if Jessica has any thoughts also.
I would love to have you right up at that podium right there.
It's the retail
What about as
aspect.
permitted under the farmer brewery law? Or I
Okay.
Please help me.
Go ahead.
Jason Duda, 13 Winter Street. So, I guess what I would appreciate first is, Jessica, could you read back what you had just?
The facility, and
Interpreted
this is not a condition, this will be in the narrative part of the decision, that the facility will primarily produce and bottle alcoholic beverages with incidental uses as permitted under the farmer brewery license, as well as retail of products and merchandise.
Now, I think one thing that, Jessica, you pointed out, and I think Chet also said it, is that certainly the licensing board has the real purview as to the issuance and of the license, or the renewal at this point of the license. What I think, and I think I can speak for the board at this point, is that it would be nice to have some clearer direction from the planning board as to what exactly incidental means.
Secondary.
Okay, so then,
Which allows for, they still get to do it.
It's not the primary, it's like accessory too. So the primary use is manufacturing with basically an accessory use of, I mean, it's not, we're not using tasting room now because there's been some discussion about the definition, but
But I mean, both primary and secondary are allowed uses.
But the farmer brewery, I mean, I think where Jason is going is that the farmer brewery license is actually the primary, defines the primary use of what's happening in this facility. So, because it's allowing him to brew, right? I'm making sure I'm getting this conflict here. So, it's not secondary. It is the primary use, is the production of beer. That primary use is ruled by the farmer brewery license.
How about this? The facility will primarily produce and bottle alcoholic beverages in accordance with the farmer brewer's license,
I feel like we
with
don't,
incidental uses to include a tasting room and retail of products and merchandise. Like, move it to the fore instead of aft, and I'm hearing nay all
Well,
around me.
I just feel like we don't need to refer like to an external
You don't want to call out the farmer brewer's
state
license
law
at all.
thing. I mean.
That leaves us with tasting room, which is very ambiguous.
So, yeah, so I'm sorry, I know this is like, we're all tired and
Hungry.
We're gonna run out of
Just put
tape.
it right out there.
I'm looking at the definition section. I think this may help clarify what you're asking, and also might require another slight word change. So in the definitions in the zoning ordinance, we have use, accessory, not incidental, and that is a use incidental and subordinate to the principal use of a structure or lot, or a use not the principal structure. And then there's more restrictions, like the area can't exceed 40% of the structure. I'm seeing if there's anything else relevant in here. So that's the basic gist of it when we talk about an accessory use. The table of uses allows accessory uses for manufacturing facilities.
Right, but the conflict with the current language is that the farmer's brewery license is the primary
Right.
use of that
Yeah,
site.
I
So
understand.
that's where that conflict needs to get resolved.
Right.
So,
But we may need to say accessory to instead of
Instead of
incidental to.
Right,
I'm fine with that,
accessory
accessory
to.
instead of incidental. But about the,
but the incidentals in the table of uses is,
Right, and the definition of manufacturing.
So we
And
don't,
I'm afraid that if we go to accessory, that incorporates a whole new set of requirements, because that's really a much bigger use than what their use is.
Right.
so your,
Tasting room is
I tend to agree
very,
with
space-wise, monetarily wise, it's a much smaller portion of their primary use than.
so you're saying it doesn't rise to the level of accessory use?
Right.
I don't know about that.
I personally agree. How do you guys feel?
you can go if you like.
May I?
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you still up there? Please.
I'd rather not be. Well, the second reason why I raised my hand was as I said, the licensing board does have the purview here, and we were looking for a little bit of direction, as we want the boards within our city to work cooperatively in conjunction with each other. Then just to say that on the initial approval of the license that they now currently have, I did not participate in that process. I will participate in the renewal. But I did read the language of the planning board's initial approval with special permit, and when I read it, after the fact, of course, the impression that I got as a citizen was that you were pushing towards it not being a bar. This is not the intention of that special permit, was for this establishment to be a bar. And when you say that its primary function is that of a manufacturing facility, and with whether you say it's an accessory of it being a tasting facility as well. I've been there, and you've been there, and you've done your site visits. I've visited the establishment myself, and it certainly seemed like a bar when I was there. And the way that the planning board is now, and the planning board, you folks are doing your due diligence, and it's much appreciated. It seems as the direction you've been with your conditions have been trying to make sure that the facility itself is amenable to that type of operation. Whereas if it was strictly a manufacturing facility and not a tasting, which can kind of morph into more of a bar sort of situation, bar type situation, then that's where, as a member of the licensing board, I look at it and say, well, what exactly was the intention of the planning board? And that's, I think, as what the licensing board is looking to you, is in your opinion, by issuing the special permit, what do you folks think this establishment is primarily, and what is its use primarily?
It's a good question.
Primary, one thing.
Well,
Harry
and it
told
can't
us.
be primary, another thing.
Harry told us before that it was very much their intention that it would not be a bar, and that's why the language was in the original permit. Do you still agree with that?
Not necessarily a bar, just selling beer. You want to call it a bar? No. Well, they'd be selling growlers or whatever. There was no retail. You weren't selling it. You could sample, but you couldn't sell it. You want to call it a bar? Call it whatever. What do you want to call it? I don't know.
So I'm willing to.
However, what's before us now is an amendment where they're
Exactly.
basically saying,
It's
our
exactly.
business has changed, we want to be expressly permitted to conduct this as an accessory or incidental use, while manufacturing remains the primary use.
Right.
So I think
we're all talking about, because the law changed, about them now having a use that allows alcohol to be served.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. I just, the only reason I did come up is we want the language for us and for the entire city and the abutters, everybody, for your language to be as clear as possible, because
We're trying.
I know, and it's difficult. I served on this board as well. I know how difficult that can be. So, just encourage you to try to be as clear as possible. Fortunately, you have someone who's very good at clear and concise language. So.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry to have kept you at the podium. My apologies for that.
Not a problem.
Okay, thanks. All right, so we're back to the language. And the issue that you have is you don't want the farmer brewery, those words, to be in there.
I'm struggling to clearly state what my problem is because I'm tired, but it's
It's hard.
Can we get a read back of what we have so far, please?
The facility will primarily produce and bottle alcoholic beverages with incidental uses as permitted under the farmer brewery license, as well as retail of products and merchandise.
That works for me.
But it conflicts,
Yeah.
because the farmer's brewer's license allows the primary use of manufacturing of beer. So to say that it's with incidental uses as permitted under the farmer brewery license, I mean, maybe it doesn't. Maybe I'm overstretching and overreaching it. It just seems that it's conflicting because.
I don't want anything that even seems conflicting.
And
So,
I think
so how do we fix it?
And I think what also is nagging at me is that when we talk about incidental uses, we want to talk about kind of concrete uses that are in our zoning ordinance, and the farmer brewer pouring license is not really, it's not a use, it's a license.
Right.
So I think we need to stick to something that's more akin to a use. And now I'm also concerned about whether this constitutes an accessory use. What does incidental use mean? Does it mean something different from accessory use?
You could phrase it this way.
Is it just a typo in the zoning ordinance?
There's lots of typos in the zoning ordinance. It's not the first one. The facility will primarily produce and bottle alcoholic beverages with an incidental uses of a 600 square foot room for the serving of alcohol. Describe what a tasting room is. Don't use the term tasting room if you have concerns about how they'll be interpreted as a definition. Just define it.
Which would be with a 600 square foot room where the
For
pouring of alcohol is allowed.
For the pouring, because we have a pouring permit, for the pouring
of alcohol.
of,
Beverages.
no,
No, it has to be
beverages
alcohol.
produced on site.
Yep.
I think that's key to the description, that it's not the serving of somebody else's beer, it's the serving of his beer in his
I'm
premise.
seeing a lot of head nodding. Is your head nodding as well?
I'm listening.
Okay, we need to try to word this. So basically, we're back to my original, but pull out tasting room, and instead, we're going to say
With
the
incidental
600
uses,
to include a 600 square foot room.
including a 600 square foot area
Fair enough.
for the serving
Of alcoholic beverages produced on
of
site.
alcohol. I mean, we're saying,
We're really working
Within
you.
the building.
Say again.
Can it be within the building, because we do tours?
Oh, I see what you're
Okay,
saying.
And,
Yeah, we can get rid of 600 square foot and just go on site.
No,
No? Why no?
because then.
I'll tell you that in the narrative, there will be something somewhere that says 600 square foot. I mean, I do,
It's not an
if
incidental
you guys
use,
read the
it's
decisions I
I'm
send you
confused
afterwards,
now.
I often put square
I'll have to read it
footages in
back.
there to
No,
define
I'm just
spaces.
It can't be more
wanna
than
know.
40%.
Go ahead.
A tasting room,
You could just say tasting room.
okay. I go into this tasting room and I taste their beer.
Mm-hmm.
I walk out.
Mm-hmm.
Can I come back in and taste again? Or do I have to buy it?
Well, they're allowed to sell it and pour it to you.
They sell pints.
Yeah, you can buy pints there.
Then they're a bar.
Oh, God.
If someone's serving me on that side and I'm receiving it on this side, is that a bar or not?
Whether I agree or disagree, it doesn't, it's
I know,
relevant, they have
it's
the right
just the tasting.
to do it. because
If you
it's
want to
the
go
bar.
to the zoning, a bar is defined in the zoning as a primary establishment serving alcoholic beverages in which the principal business is the
Which is
sale of
business,
such
not-
beverages
not a
at
bar.
retail for consumption on the premises.
Okay,
The principal
so then
business.
it's not a bar.
Okay,
Not a bar.
so let's get that language you were
Even though
working
they
on, it was so promising. Maybe the 600 square foot needs to get worked on. Let's
ask
just
for
hear what you've
payment.
got so far and see if we can tweak that part.
The
We're getting
facility
close
will
to the
primarily
community.
produce and bottle alcoholic beverages with incidental uses. Can I do the retail of products and merchandise first, because that seems to be.
Right.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Or
Let me let her finish reading this, and then I'll give you.
the retail of
No time limit on this, Jimmy.
No, we're out of camera. 8
products.
o'clock.
Most
8
of
o'clock,
that.
we're
No,
done.
we're not on a DVD tonight,
Oh,
so.
good news. Okay, good.
Okay.
For the retail of products and merchandise, as well as, we can define tasting room. A tasting room,
Defined as.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
What is a tasting room?
a tasting room for the serving of,
Pouring.
for the serving, pouring,
Their permit says pouring, so I'm trying to keep the language.
all right, for the pouring of
Product.
products produced on site.
Yep, good. All right, I know there's a comment, someone wants to make a comment there. I want to give her one readout for us and then allow it.
I have a question before we
Okay,
do
go ahead.
another readout or get more
Yes.
comments.
So,
So I'm still wondering, Jessica, if you can explain to me the difference between accessory and incidental.
I think they're essentially the same, really, when you come down to it.
Yeah.
The core of them are exactly the same. Incidental is, I think they're just being used differently in the definition section, that's all. An accessory use in terms of residential is an accessory apartment.
Right.
Or an accessory, I mean, any accessory use can be, it's the secondary use on site. Incidental, I don't know, I mean, maybe you have a different take, but in my opinion, they're,
I'm just concerned that if it rises to the level of accessory, that imposes greater requirements on it for approvals.
Right.
incidental is something that just sort of happens in addition to.
Yes.
Which is,
And in the table of uses, under accessory, there's a section for accessory uses that are allowed in different zones. And this is 524, number 8 on the list. Accessory, industrial, and commercial uses to serve principal and industrial and commercial uses respectively. So my concern is that it appears to be saying, if it's an industrial use, you can have an accessory industrial use. If it's a commercial use, you can have an accessory commercial use, but not the other way around. That's my reading of it.
You can also, but you could also interpret it, the zoning, that, and this is often what we do with mixed-use buildings, is as long as that use is permitted in that zone, it's allowed in that building. So you can have a residential, you can have a commercial, you can have an industrial in the same building if all of those uses are permitted in that zoning district.
Right, I could see that that could be a legitimate interpretation.
So, you know, if you look at retail, retail is allowed in the industrial district as a use.
Which would make accessory or incidental moot.
No, it means,
No.
it makes,
Because they're both allowed.
yeah, but they're both allowed, but you can't, if there's a difference in requirements between having two primary uses and having a primary and an accessory use.
I recognize, but the interpretation goes either way. We
No,
just,
I'm talking about whether you can have commercial accessory use in an industrial building at all.
right, and as just was described, you can have retail in industrial. Did we not?
Yes,
just-
I guess
so
I'm
it's-
confused about what your question is.
Well, you're saying, can they do it? And it just seems that we can, the answer is
As an
yes.
accessory use, yes.
Yeah.
But I do think that, given that even though it's not a primary use, there are a lot of substantial public health, safety, and welfare concerns associated with the accessory use of a tasting room or whatever we're going to call it, but I do think that we should explicitly say that this is an accessory use and not an incidental use. We don't have a definition of incidental in our zoning ordinance. We do have a definition of accessory use.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gotta be accessory then.
Yeah, fair enough.
Put
A well-made
accessory.
point.
Don't
Put
confuse it.
accessory in it.
You convinced me.
Makes sense.
The facility will primarily produce and bottle alcoholic beverages with accessory uses for the retail of products and merchandise as well as for the serving, as well as for a tasting room for the pouring of products produced on site.
We need to clean that up. I've been holding off, I apologize. Do you want to come up and comment?
Robert Pettis, chapter 15, Fort Hill Road. Now, what is going to happen here in the near future after you decide tonight that Easthampton is looking to sell more beer and wine licenses and liquor licenses, hoping that the 3 breweries in Easthampton will take over the liquor licenses. Now, how is that going to affect us with this? Is that going to...
We don't have any purview over liquor
We don't
licenses,
have
although
it.
there's some, well, there were.
But
Right, well, we're talking about restricting this to what's being manufactured on the premises. So I
only.
think that
Yeah, you
would
can't sell what
limit,
isn't manufactured.
selling other
Yeah, you won't
kinds
have
of
other...
You can't sell other
outside alcohol.
products,
now,
just what he manufactures.
okay. Now, one last question. Who do we call on a weekend if we find that the brewery is not in ordinance with their parking and occupancy?
I guess you have to go to the
We,
police department.
pardon?
Yeah,
Police.
Police department, building inspector, the normal...
Yeah, but they're not on, the
That's
inspector's not on
we
duty.
don't, that's not anything, we can set the guidelines,
Well, we've
but
been trying to
enforcement is
find
not
out.
something, we don't...
And nobody
What
will
I've
let
said
us
is the
know.
process in the past is that if there's a situation, call the police, they make a record of it, you know, they respond to the call and there's dispatch, and so there's a paper trail to the response of there. That will help the building inspector when he comes into the office on Monday, because at least there'll be a record of the incident.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think the key thing is that once a decision comes out of the planning board, then we are not the enforcement body, so anything.
Well, I know you're not the
right,
enforcement
so-
body, but we
okay,
wanna
yeah,
know who to contact.
Right.
I mean, the mayor says, go to the police. I mean, she's supposed to be the head of the town
I
and the
respect-
head of all these departments, and she's not doing a damn thing.
Police, building inspector, do you have anything about the language that we're using now?
I think that the language was good. I mean, but I just wanted to find out what was gonna happen with these liquor licenses, but.
Understandable,
I think
thank
the
you.
main thing that we can do is make sure that we've considered some of the potential nuisances as we are, and problems that we're allowed to consider, and then make sure that our conditions are then something that can be enforced by someone else if there's a problem. And I think that's sort of what we're grappling with
Always, yeah.
is, how to make that something that then, if there is a complaint, it's clear what they are supposed to be doing and can be dealt with.
Okay, I want to put our heads on this language because we have got to get through this and it's
Okay,
getting
thank
late.
you.
Thank you. All right, have you tweaked that at all? I'd like to hear it just one more time and so we can see if we're where we need to be now. And we've switched it to accessories, I think, right?
Right.
I see Jessica madly tweaking over there.
The facility will primarily produce and bottle alcoholic beverages, including accessory uses of the retail of products and merchandise, as well as for a tasting room for the pouring of products produced on site.
Okay. Thoughts?
No, I just,
We're all getting tired.
well, I just have,
So, I mean, honestly, we have a question of, is everyone at this table at a point where they can rationally consider that sentence structure that just came out?
Absolutely.
Good.
We'll move on with it.
Are you,
I'm
everyone?
having a little bit of a hard time.
It's
to
not
be
making
honest.
sense to me,
All right.
sorry.